You check your brokerage account before bed. The number moved by $340 today. You didn't touch it. You didn't add a single new dollar. It just grew while you were doing something else entirely. For years, growth felt different than this. You deposit, you wait, you deposit again. Your effort drove the number dollar by dollar, paycheck by paycheck. But somewhere between your first dollar invested and your millionth, that relationship quietly flips. The money starts doing the work. You start watching it happen. Almost nobody notices the exact day it happens. Most people assume investing stays the same grind forever, save, contribute, repeat for 30 straight years with no relief in sight, no shift in effort, no reward for showing up longer than everyone else. But it doesn't stay that way. There is a specific calculable point where the interest your money earns in a single year becomes larger than the money you personally put in that year. Researchers and financial planners call this the crossover point. And once you see the actual numbers behind it, you can't unsee how close it really is. Let's build a scenario properly with real numbers, not vague reassurance. Imagine you invest $20,000 a year, a realistic figure for a household maxing out a couple of retirement accounts. You earn a 7% average annual return after inflation, which is close to the long-run real return of the U.S. stock market that economist Burton Malkiel documented across decades of market data in his book, A Random Walk Down Wall Street. Your target, $1 million. Here's the part almost nobody walks you through. At $10,000 sitting in your portfolio, 7% hands you back $700 for the year. Meanwhile, you're still contributing your full $20,000. You are doing 96% of the work. The market is barely a rounding error next to your paycheck. At $100,000, that same 7% generates $7,000. Your contribution is still $20,000. You're still the primary engine, still carrying roughly 3/4 of the load. It feels like nothing has changed. You're still the one showing up every month, but something has already started shifting underneath the surface. This is exactly the stretch where most people quit. The balance grows slowly. The contributions feel enormous compared to the interest they generate. $20,000 a year is real money tuition, a car payment, a summer of vacations you didn't take. And the market hands you back $700, then $7,000, and it can feel like the sacrifice isn't registering. Behavioral researchers have a name for this gap between effort and visible reward. It's the same discouragement that causes people to abandon diets, skip workouts, and quit savings plans right before the results start compounding. The years between $10,000 and $300,000 are not glamorous. They are the years that decide everything that comes after. At $300,000, the math quietly flips. 7% of $300,000 is $21,000. That's more than your $20,000 contribution. For the first time, compound interest is out-earning you. This is the crossover point, not a feeling, not a milestone you'd notice by checking your mood. A specific, calculable dollar amount where the machine you built starts pulling harder than you do. Keep going. At $500,000, interest alone generates $35,000 a year, nearly double what you're contributing out of pocket. At $1 million, it's $70,000, 3.5 times your annual contribution. You didn't get smarter. You didn't get a raise. You crossed a threshold and the portfolio quietly took over the job you used to do alone. Now here's the part that should genuinely surprise you, because it did to almost everyone who first sees this table. If you kept contributing that full $20,000 a year for the entire journey, you'd reach $1 million in roughly 23 years. That's the baseline. Full effort, the whole distance, no shortcuts. Now run the counterintuitive version. What if you stopped contributing the moment you hit $100,000 and simply let the 7% ride with zero new money added? You would need about 33 more years for compounding alone to carry you the rest of the way to $1 million. Your total timeline stretches to 38 years, 15 years slower than the person who never stopped contributing. At $100,000, the engine simply isn't strong enough yet to carry the weight alone. You checked out too early, and time punishes that. But stop contributing at $300,000 right at the crossover point, and the math changes completely. Compounding alone now needs about 18 more years to finish the job, for a total of 29 years. Only 6 years behind the person who never missed a single contribution. Once compound interest is doing more than half the work. Walking away from new contributions barely costs you anything. And here's the twist that breaks most people's intuition about money entirely. Stop contributing at $500,000 and compounding alone reaches a million in roughly 10 more years, a total of 25 years. Just 2 years slower than someone who grinded out full contributions for the entire 23-year stretch. Sit with that for a second. Reaching $500,000 put you exactly halfway to your $1 million goal in dollar terms. But it did not put you halfway through the time it takes to get there. You were already close to the finish line in every way that actually mattered. Reaching half your money target does not mean you're only halfway through the wait. Past the crossover point distance, measured in dollars, and distance measured in time, stop moving at the same speed because the machine, not you, is now covering most of the ground. This pattern isn't just a spreadsheet trick. Thomas Stanley, in his research published as The Millionaire Next Door, found that most self-made millionaires didn't get there through a windfall in inheritance or a sudden spike in income. They got there by staying invested long enough for ordinary, unremarkable contributions to cross this exact threshold and then letting time do what time reliably does. The account doesn't know your salary. It doesn't know your job title. It only knows how long it's been compounding and at what rate. So, how do you find your own version of this number, the one that tells you when you can, if you choose to stop pouring in new money and let growth alone carry you to your goal by retirement? Financial planners call this your COAST-FI number, short for Coasting to Financial Independence. It isn't identical to the crossover point, which only looks at this year's cash flow in isolation. COAST-FI answers a bigger, more personal question. Given how many years you have left until retirement, how much do you need invested today so that growth alone with zero additional contributions from this point forward gets you to your retirement target right on schedule? The math works backward from your goal instead of forward from your contributions. Take the number you want sitting in your account at retirement. Divide it by your expected real return compounded over every single year you have left until you retire. Whatever number is left is your COAST-FI number. The amount that's sitting untouched starting today mathematically becomes your retirement goal on its own, with nothing more asked of you. This idea builds on decades of retirement research, including the influential withdrawal rate study financial analyst William Bengen published in 1994, which first demonstrated how predictably a portfolio behaves once it's built and simply left alone to run its course. It also echoes something Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez argued back in 1992 in their book, Your Money or Your Life. Every dollar you earn, they wrote, is really an hour of your life traded away. COAST-FI is the mathematical proof that at some point you've already traded enough hours. The remaining hours between here and retirement can belong to compound interest instead of your calendar. Once you cross your personal COAST-FI number, something changes that has nothing to do with your spreadsheet. The pressure lifts. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow. You don't have to make any dramatic announcement to your coworkers. But you can take the lower stress role. You can turn down the unpaid overtime without panicking about your future. You can stop lying awake calculating whether this month's contribution was big enough because the math already answered that question for you. Your future stops riding on your next paycheck. It starts riding on time, and time was always going to pass anyway, whether you spent it worrying or not. That's the real prize hiding inside all these tables, not just a bigger number someday, but permission to breathe long before that number arrives. You don't need a financial advisor to find your own crossover point tonight. Take your current portfolio balance. Multiply it by the real return you expect, something close to that same 7% after inflation. That number is what your money is on pace to earn this year without any help from you. Now compare it to what you actually plan to contribute this year. If the interest is still smaller, you're still the engine. If it's larger or getting close, you're nearer to the flip than you assumed. Most people never run this one multiplication. It takes 30 seconds and it tells you more about your financial future than almost anything else you could check today. Pull up your own accounts tonight, find your current balance, run the 7% against it, and compare that number to what you contribute in a typical year. You might already be closer to your own crossover point than you think closer to the moment the machine starts pulling harder than you do. You check your brokerage account before bed. The number moved by $340 today. You didn't touch it. You didn't add a single new dollar. And for the first time, that's not a coincidence you're hoping repeats. It's the exact outcome the math promised you the day you crossed the line.